Hi, welcome back to Frazzled Dad's Minis. I'm Jim. Thanks for joining me. This episode is going to be a little bit meta. The title is something like Learning to Learn. So, a related tangent, I promise this will be applicable. Um, I've spent a lot of years, decades, uh, in roles of an instructor, a coach, a mentor, and also a student. And I'm intrigued by how I learn and helping other people learn. So, my goal for this episode is maybe to give you a few thoughts about how to progress in your own learning journey. Um, and it's going to be some tips and tricks and some things I think about as far as my own path on learning. So, it's kind of, I've got some bullet points written on a post-it, literally, here, on my monitor that I'm going to be talking to for a bit. I hope you find it useful, and I hope you find it helpful. So, first off, in painting minis, it's okay to just do it for fun. You don't have to have a goal in mind of wanting to win Golden Demon. Um, if all you're looking to do is put figurines on a table, minis on a table for a game, yay. Figure out how to get a level that's acceptable for you, and frankly, screw everybody else. If you're happy with it, 100% solid. If you are interested in regularly figuring out how to improve, then that's awesome as well. And like, to be clear, if you watched my intro, I've only been doing this for, a bit over a year. So I'm figuring out all sorts of stuff. And there's all kinds of stuff that I'm still crappy at. All right. So first off, what are your goals? If it is just to have fun and go do other things and you're just out Googling how to solve certain problems, like, how do I make my faces not suck? Or how do I get the best coverage with Vallejo metallics? Awesome. All of that's solid. But if you're looking to learn, there's some things to keep in mind. First off, you have to be disciplined about your practice as you're trying to improve your skills. You may have heard the expression that it takes 10,000 hours to get to a level of mastery and expertise. And there's like science behind that. There are several good books on learning that I can think of, mostly in the like computer software space, because that was where I had my career at. I'll put a couple links in the description, which you may or may not find interesting. Hopefully you find the description interesting. Anyway, I'll put a couple books that I've used as references on helping me learn how to learn. So you have to be disciplined about how you approach learning. And I'll use as an example, back in 2020, I taught myself how to shoot pistols. I hadn't been around firearms much. Despite being in the military for 11 years, I was in the Air Force and we just didn't deal with guns. It wasn't the thing. But I was interested in teaching myself firearms to potentially compete in practical shooting competitions and see what I could do. So every time I go to the range when I'm practicing, and I don't practice much anymore because I've blown up my knees and it's hard and it's painful. Anyway, every time I'd go to the range, every single time I would write down my goals for the day. I'd write down some drills that I was going to do, and I'd log how I did on each one. And you'll see a page from my training log here. If you are looking to improve your mini painting skills, I'd encourage you to do something similar, in that when you sit down for a practice session which is a little bit different than getting work done. When you sit down for a practice session, start off and get your head in a learning mode. And some of that is write down a couple goals that you might have for the session. So I'm got a piece on the screen here about a practice session I had some months ago, where I was just focusing on tiny faces, like 28 millimeter scale heads, and had a great set of heads that I got off of either my mini factory or Cults. If I remember, I'll put a link in the description. Anyway, the point being was that I'm not great on faces. So I set out to practice, and I wrote down some goals, and I wrote down some things that I wanted to work on, and I logged how I did so that I could go back and look at the work, look at my notes, and that helped me figure out how I was doing on that session. Disciplined practice. It's really important. All right. So the other thing is FAFO. Look around, find out. Remember, at the end of the day, the stuff we're working on is just plastic little models, resin, plastic, whatever. Maybe you're working with metal. Just go with me on this. You can always start over. So like I've got some bust pieces here that I printed off on my 3D printer. Got this Roman dude. I've got Nefertiti, a Egyptian lady, and then I've got some, I can't even remember who this dude is, but he's got a very chiseled face. I work on these regularly. I'll spray them over with primer, restart, to help me get better because I suck at skin tones, and I hate that, and I want to get a little better. So I'm practicing on these. Again, disciplined practice. I will sit down with these with a particular goal in mind. Like, I want to work on highlights, or I want to get better at like blending between transitions, right? So draw volumes, do some sketching, and then smooth that out, whether it's with glazing or whether it's with feathering, another approach. So that notion of I am sitting down and I'm going to be disciplined about a piece of practice to work on. That disciplined practice is really critical, because if you take seriously that notion of there's X amount of hours to mastery, all of the writings, all of the research around that is you can't just do the same thing for 10,000 hours and expect to be a master. You have to practice hard along that route to get there. And some of that sort of ties in with what is the area, what am I trying to say here? Be the worst in the band. There's an expression that's used amongst musicians, and it's also used commonly in like the software craftsmanship area, like that I used to be in, where if you're the best, you're not going to learn anything. And the best in your team, in your little community, whatever. It's harder to step up and learn more because you're not being challenged. You're not being challenged. You don't find other people to push you. You don't find other people who are way above you to aspire to and say, holy crap, that person's awesome. What do I have to learn so that I can do work at the level that they are? So this notion of, as you're trying to do disciplined learning, finding communities to be in and part of where there are amazing people that you can look at their work and aspire to, and hopefully they're kind enough souls that they will give you some tips along the way. Man, this is glorious stuff when you can find a community that's like that, where there are literal masters at work, and hopefully they're kind and good souls who are willing to step aside with you and give you some constructive criticism or potentially even some mentoring. Now, along that same route, being the worst in the band, meaning being lower skilled than everybody around you so that you can learn and that there are all these people that are doing amazing things, that can also come with a cost. You may or may not be familiar with the phrase impostor syndrome. Let me tell you, I have struggled with this in my day job, in life, in other things for decades, literally. And imposter syndrome is this constant self-criticism, this negative voice that says, I'm not good enough. Why am I here? Everything I'm doing is crap. These people are just think I'm a joke. They're embarrassed to have me around. That imposter syndrome is a committee in your head that you need to figure out how to close the door on them. And it's hard. But here's the thing. Paying attention to that committee, that bunch of negative voices in your head, can be helpful to a small point because it pushes you. Sometimes paying attention to a little bit of self-criticism is good. Like, okay, on this piece, I was doing very terribly with volume highlighting. Like I wasn't getting the work done that I needed to. I got really frustrated and I set this aside. But I also sat back for a minute, took a bit of a breath, and said, what is it that I need to learn here? Okay, so I didn't allow myself to get run over by that imposter syndrome. Rather, it was stepping back and focusing on what was I still needing to learn versus being overly critical. Hopefully that wasn't too philosophical and meta. Imposter syndrome can be an excruciating thing to subject yourself to. Believe me, I know. So as you're going on this learning journey, the help of a log here is critical because you can go back and you can say, holy crap, look at what I was doing 6 months ago. I was focusing on some fundamentals and now I've got those down and I don't even need to have to worry about it. Taking pictures of your work, even if it's not studio quality pictures, just keep a log. I've got an album in my iPhoto library that's just minis. And I go back to that pretty regularly because it's a little bit inspiring for me. Not in an egotistical way, but rather it's like, wow, a year ago I was struggling with highlighting. A year ago I was struggling with edge or pen washes. A year ago my faces were horrible and now they're just terrible. And that's an improvement. Part of this learning journey is figuring out how to keep yourself motivated so that you don't let that negative committee in your head beat you down. Learning's hard. It can be frustrating, and it's okay to take a break from it every once in a while. I do that regularly with my huge, messy workspace over here. I've been struggling with skin tones for months, and that committee is getting too loud of a voice in my head. So I stopped focusing on skin tones, and I was just working on other things, non-metallic metals. Again, a practice piece here to where I could play around with coarse metals. I've got another piece in my library that is a bust of like kind of a old style. I think of him as this grunt with a spear, and he's got a bashed up helmet. And there were some specific things that I wasn't overly worried about the learning process. Rather, I just wanted to knock something out, see some progress. And that's an important part of that. Don't always be beating yourself up about your learning journey. Get some time in there for fun. Step back. So a lot of this was some kind of meta stuff. It was me on a usual rant, but this is stuff I actually care about. It was something that I was deep into when I was working in the software industry. I loved working with teams of people trying to help everybody level up. I've written courses, I've done conference speaking, I've done workshops for years and decades. I was an instructor all the way back in the 80s and 90s in the Air Force because I loved helping people improve their skills and get on their learning journey. And that also, by the way, really helped me with my own learning journey. So I hope you found this useful. If you did, I'd love to see you hit a like and a subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you found something useful and how you go on with your own learning journey. I'd love to hear that because I'm always pulling in nuggets from other people who approach learning differently than I do. In the meantime, until the next episode, please be kind to others, experiment, learn, and remember, at the end of the day, it's just plastic and paint. Thank you.